Yeah.
We gave him that money with the hopes that we could fix him, right? So why not give that same deal to Ross Stripling with the hopes that we can just not ruin him? Right?
Yes. Yes. Hyun-Jin Ryu, probably out all of next season. Of course, he's going to undergo Tommy John surgery. If he hasn't already, I haven't even checked. He probably has had it done at this point. Kikuchi, we don't need to get into the question marks surrounding that man.
Mm-hmm.
We're all very aware of it. Mitch White is even a question mark. Ross Stripling becomes a free agent. How active do you think the Blue Jays will be in free agency when it comes to starting pitching next year? They're probably going to kick some tires, right? If nothing else. And they need to do something. It might be more likely in trade, but they need to do something.
Yeah, let me just pull up the free agent class for MLB pitchers this offseason. I mean, coin toss, is Ross Stripling a Blue Jay next year? Because that affects things, right? If he's gone, they need to be a lot more aggressive.
I don't know. I really don't know. And you look at the way that this organization has operated from that sort of standpoint in the past, take a look at Steven Matz is probably a pretty decent comparable where they found some success with Matz after he wasn't the pitcher that he was last year. And they let him walk. St. Louis grabbed him for 4 years, $44 million, I think it was, something like $11 million a year, and Steven Matz decided to go for a longer-term, shorter per annual value. So we'll see what options are out there for Stripling. If there's a team out there that's going to offer him $50 million and a 4-year contract,
he's gone.
He's probably gone. Which really adds some question marks to this starting rotation. Because, I mean, you've obviously got Barrios, Gausman, and Manoah locked in long-term over the next 4 to 6 years, depending on their contracts or ARB eligibility when it comes to Manoah. So they've got their base set up well. But there's question marks around Barrios, right? Like, sorry to cut you off there. Would it benefit them to go out and try and land a number 2 pitcher? Yeah. Are they going to allocate those funds?
Well, okay. Kirk, Moreno, Jansen, plus prospects, like whatever the price tag might be to go out and trade for a young number 2 pitcher, you can't give up those prospects without the intent of locking that guy up long term, right?
Couldn't agree more. Something like Seattle just did with Castillo.
Exactly. What we did with Barrios.
Yes.
Right? Which didn't work out this year, but I still think over the life of the contract, we're going to look back and go, yeah, maybe not the sexiest thing, but it worked out. Look, I think we were talking about Blue Jays sending a qualifying offer to Ross Stripling last week.
Which I think this year works out to $18.8 million. I'd need to double check, but it's going to be right in that zone, somewhere between 18 and 19 million for 1 year.
So we have a comment here from the YouTube chat from Peter. Says Stripling 3 years at 13 million per year. Is that fair? I don't honestly know. I mean, it depends how much a team has faith in what he did this year and whether that's sustainable over 180 innings for 3 years.
I think it's likely.
Yeah, the qualifying offer would be an overpay. Like, I don't think he's going to get an 18 million annual average in any sort of a term contract. Like, I don't think he's getting 3 years at 18 million, right?
No.
So would the qualifying offer be an overpay? I would say yes, but I would be willing to do it because we need just another year to give our young guys a chance to develop a bit, right? Figure it, just stabilize things, get an eye on what's going on with Kikuchi, right? Like, is Kikuchi going to work long term, or not long
Mm-hmm.
term, but like, so to go into next year with like 3.5 starting pitchers plus a question mark, and I'm going, Gossman, Manoah, Stripling, and then
Mm-hmm.
Barrios is my half, and Kikuchi is the question mark, right? I feel a lot better about that than not having Stripling and hoping to land an Aaron Nola or Clayton Kershaw from the Dodgers, or bidding war for Noah Syndergaard, or whatever the case may be, right? So
I
some
mean,
stability and some like light through the fog of next year, I think is worth a bit of an overpay.
and I think that they may lean towards doing that. We'll see. There was a lot of talk about qualifying offers when it came to Steven Matz last year, and the Jays chose not to go that route. I really do believe what Peter is saying is probably a pretty accurate representation of the sort of contract that Stripling has earned and will wind up getting offered, which is around 3 years, $13 million a year. So that, somewhere around 3 years, 40 million is my
Yep.
guess. Maybe 4 years and a little bit less. So maybe we'd see something like him take 4 years, 48 million or something like that, if that's an offer that teams are going to have out there. But maybe 18 million just to secure that spot in the roster and in the starting rotation is going to be worth it. And that does give some of their top pitching prospects, like Ricky Tiedemann, another year to develop. And I think that that's important when it comes to guys like Tiedemann because he's 20, right? Semro Burst, 20 years old. Both these guys have all the potential in the world, and maybe they can help this team in 2023.
Okay, so we agree that it's probably in the Blue Jays' best interest to qualify Ross Stripling. What's in it for
Probably.
Ross? Do you think Ross Stripling sees the value in that, or does he just go like 18 million is half of what he would get on a term deal. 20 million, even if next year's a disaster and he's out of the league, that's still 20 million. Like that's still probably
But
more
it's
than he's
also
made in
half
his
of what he
career so
probably
far.
would get, right? It is. You're correct, but it's probably half of what he would get if he goes to the open market. It's going to be a really interesting decision for the Stripling family as to what they decide to do. Do they have the roots in Toronto that it's worth it for them to take a little bit of a risk and take the more money and bet on himself? Or is it more likely that he's like, you know what? Who knows where I'm going to be? I'm 33 years old starting next season. Maybe I want to take the 3-year term and make as much money as I can.
He has to make a decision on the qualifying offer before free agency begins, correct?
Yes, he does.
But we'd be naive to pretend his agent doesn't have feelers out ahead of time and have some sort of a thermometer in the water on what the offers are going to be,
Yeah.
right? So,
Well, Charles in chat makes a really good point here. He said, I would definitely qualify Stripling. Worst case scenario, we overpay 5 to 6 million for 1 year if he accepts. And that's probably the scenario, right? Is that you're overpaying for Ross Stripling. However, he's a guy you know. He fits in well with the team. He knows the city and has been nothing but a team player all season long. I mean, we've watched that man be yo-yoed back and forth between the bullpen and the starting rotation a couple of times already this season.
if I was the Jays, I would make a stipulation in that qualifying offer that, like, hey, you're going to be a starting pitcher all year long.
Yes.
You're going to get 18 million guaranteed, and you're going to get a chance to show the other 29 teams that you can pitch 180 innings.
Now, I did wish to really quickly touch on Ricky Tiedemann. I know that a lot of guys in the Scott brings it up in the chat here. He says, just bring up Ricky Teed, F it. The early call up. And then he follows that up with saying, it worked out with Manoah. It did work out with Manoah. Number one, it almost never works out. Just that with when it comes to starting pitchers under the age of 25, there's always growing pains when it comes to their call up. Always. 100% of the time. Manoah's the only example of someone I can't think of any growing pains. You know, like he came in firing. He came in as a top 3 starter in this Blue Jays rotation and hasn't
Hasn't
faltered.
looked back. Yeah.
He's pretty much just improved. Ricky Tiedemann, 3 years younger than Alek Manoah was when he did this. And the same amount, this is Ricky Tiedemann's first full year as a professional baseball player. And don't get me wrong, he's been incredible. He was in low A, high A, double A is where he ended his season. He's probably going to start double A next year and get the call up to triple A within the next first month or two if he continues to progress. We all, as Jays fans, should be super excited about Ricky Tiedemann. 20 years old, though, gang. 20.
Okay. You know what's funny about this, too? And I'm not, like, pointing fingers at anyone, and I'm also to blame for this. But the way we, like, look at stats to confirm what we want to feel is accurate in, like, both ways. Like, we talked about Nate Pearson a lot on Long Toss last night, and I know his pitching coach, Anthony Telford's joining us this Sunday. That's going to be a great episode. We got Adam Blank, too. Hilarious comedian out of Edmonton. Also a Rays fan. Telford's a Rays fan. This is going to be a fun conversation Sunday night. But there's not a lot of love for Nate Pearson right now.
No, there's not.
He did have a bad outing Saturday night in AAA. But before that, he was putting up very nice numbers. 9 starts, ERA like around 1, a whip well under 1. Ks per 9 was like 14. But then the pushback is, yeah, but it's just AAA.
Yeah.
Right? But then when we're talking about Ricky Tiedemann and how phenomenal he's pitching, the qualifying statement there of like, yeah, but it was in single A all year, a little bit of double A. It's like we dismiss what Nate Pearson's doing at AAA, but when Ricky Tiedemann's doing it at a lower level, it's like, wow.
No,
you know
it's true.
I mean?
Northern Growler has your back on this, by the way, because he says you can take stats for your narrative, just depends which one you choose.
It always reminds me, like Bill Burr had a really great line. I think it was on Joe Rogan, but he's like, you have your argument and then you go to imright.com and then you get the stats that back up whatever your stance is that you've already made up in your head, right? So
100%.
Ricky Tiedemann, I'm really excited for, but
I'm really excited for Ricky as well.
We should temper our expectations.
I just don't wish to see this kid pushed beyond where he should be pushed too early on.
Yeah, and I think that's another good argument for going out and signing a pitcher or acquiring another starting pitcher, right?
And maybe this is why you do overpay for Ross Stripling and qualify offer. You roll the dice. You go with the guy and just kind of quantify in your head that yes, we probably are paying him $5 million more than we would on the open market. But he's not going to sign a 1-year deal, right? Like that's the other little thing to keep in mind when it comes to Ross Stripling. He is going to take a 3-year deal. He has pitched well enough at this point in the season. He's going to have finished the season with probably 140 to 150 innings pitched.
The more I think about it, the more I am just willing to give Ross Stripling a 3-year deal myself.
Maybe. And maybe we've watched the Blue Jays do this before. Look at the J Happ deal they made back in 2015, and that worked out incredibly well, which was 3-year, $36 million. And everybody, when he signed that, were like, what are they doing?
Look
signing a 31-year-old.
I know it's not the same because Kikuchi's a lefty, right? And there's the value of being a lefty and whatever. But look at the deal we gave Yusei Kikuchi, who didn't exactly set the world on fire in Seattle the previous season.
Yeah.
But we gave him that money with the hopes that we could fix him, right? So why not give that same deal to Ross Stripling with the hopes that we can just not ruin him? Right?
Yes. You know what? However Stripling plays out, I would love to see him remain a J, whether it's through qualifying offer and a 1-year deal, and you're just betting that Ricky Tiedemann can continue to improve and be within the rotation come 2024, or whether it's locking him up as your 5th starter for 3 years, $36 million if you can get him for that, somewhere in that range, and just know that Ross Stripling is a dude who has never relied on velocity. Yes, he's 32 years old. Yes, his final 3 years are probably going to bring him to 36 years of age if you are going to sign him to some term. That said, he's developed a changeup this year that has worked incredibly well. He has 4 good pitches that he has been able to move all over the zone all year long, up and down, left and right, which is very important. Some of the best pitchers in the league are only locating left to right or up and down, and he's doing the whole quadrant. I almost want to bet on the guy that has been here with us.
Yeah. Yeah, I think
because you're going to, if Kikuchi proved anything to us, Adam, it's that you're going to overpay for pitching on the open market.
Well, okay, and let's look at Boston as a team to measure ourselves against, right? Like, Boston has been a team that has, in recent memory at least, refused to pay the homegrown talent. And Ross Stripling isn't quite homegrown talent, but he's established himself well here, right? So they don't pay homegrown talent. They get rid of guys like Mookie Betts, right? They've created tension with Devers and Bogarts and stuff like this while bringing in
Trevor Story,
high price tag guys like Trevor Story, right? And that creates a real resentment within the organization, within the players, right? And I just think that maybe that is enough of a reason to just give your guy the bag, as opposed to everything Ross Stripling has done for us this year. The players are just as well aware of it, right? Give him the money as opposed to letting him walk and then bringing in the next Yusei Kikuchi and rolling the dice on it, right? Like rolling the dice that Chris Sale can calm down and pitch well or whatever the case may be, right? Like, we just let Robbie Ray go. Chris Black just joined the waiting room, by the way. Are we doing this today?
Oh, I don't know. I
guess we could just let him in and start chatting. You still got your questions for him, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, bear with us. We got a little bit of a long episode.
Yeah. Let's bring him in. Okay, awesome.
I'll just let him in, and then we'll get right to it.
Sounds good. There we go.